discussing the DMD paper that had come in April 2023, and the first part of it we'll be discussing. So that means the first five questions we'll discuss, and tomorrow we will be discussing the remaining questions, that is from question 6 to 10. So coming to the first question, the first part of the first question is what is hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction? This carries 2 marks. And what is the effect of anesthesia on it? This sub question carries 3 marks. The next part of the question is enumerate the interventions that can help to prevent atelectasis during anesthesia. This entire question carries 5 marks. So coming to the first question, which is split into two, that is what is hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction? So this particular question, what is hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction, you cannot just define it because this actual question carries 2 marks. So we need to give some information also on HPV. And the next part is what is the effect of anesthesia. So let's go through it first. You know that this is very intrinsic to the pulmonary vasculature that whenever there is hypoxia, the pulmonary arteries constrict. But if if you compare these pulmonary arteries with the peripheral arteries, if at all there's peripheral hypoxia or there's hypercardia, then our peripheral arteries vasodilate so as to provide more and more blood supply to maintain the endorphin perfusion. But the exact opposite happens with pulmonary circulation. Whenever there is hypoxia as in alveolar hypoxia. So a particular alveolus is not receiving enough of oxygen. So the pulmonary artery that is in connection with the alveolus tends to constrict. So the main purpose behind this idea of hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction, this natural physiology, is to prevent VQ mismatch. Because if there was alveolar hypoxia and if the pulmonary arteries kept dilating in that particular area, there would have been excess perfusion in relation to the ventilation, which would have resulted in a lot of VQ mismatch. So this is basically a safety mechanism that is intrinsic to pulmonary vasculature. That is why you get hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction. So let's define it first, that it's a homeostatic mechanism that is intrinsic to the pulmonary vasculature. Intrapulmonary arteries constrict in response to alveolar hypoxia, because of which what happens is that the blood is diverted to the better oxygenated lung segments, thereby optimizing ventilation perfusion matching and systemic oxygen delivery. So this is the basic purpose of HPV. Now, as this question carries 2 marks, we will have a few more discussion on this. So, what is the mechanism of vasoconstriction? So, there are some vasoconstricting substances, vasoconstrictor mediators, which are secreted in response to the hypoxia in lung patients, which are leukotrienes, prostaglandins, and histamine. Next is nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is actually responsible for vasodilation, and this nitric oxide decreases, thereby leading to vasoconstriction. So, hypoxia inhibits nitric oxide synthesis. This inhibits the release of cyclooxygenase, which in turn leads to vasoconstriction of the pulmonary vascular smooth muscles. Moreover, there is also a direct action that is caused by hypoxia on the arteries, leading to vasoconstriction. Now, what are the characteristics of HPV? What is the benefit of hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction? One thing you know that the VQ mismatch is prevented. So it reduces the blood flow to the non-ventilated lung by around 50%. This takes place within 30 minutes of hypoxia. Maximal response occurs at 2 hours. Preconditioning also takes place, that is, response to the second hypoxic challenge is stronger than the first. And what are the effects of hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction? The main effect is reduction of shunt. So the shunt reduces by 10 to 20%, and main R factor is PaO2, which is maintained because of hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction. So far we have defined hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction. We have seen what are the factors which are responsible for causing vasoconstriction and what are the characteristics, that is, what are the effects or the benefits that you get out of hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction. This slide is actually extremely important. You need to write it. Just you have to be worried about the time because this question carries only 2 marks. So just in case if you feel that you're running out of time, maybe as far as this mechanism is concerned, maybe you can just write down the headings that these substances and decrease nitric oxide and there's a direct action. So maybe you can cut it short, but make sure that you include all these important points in your answer. So, what are the factors which are known to inhibit hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction? One is pulmonary hypertension, other is hypocapnia and alkalosis because that will cause vasodilatation. Increased cardiac output will again increase the blood supply to the non-ventilated region. Hypothermia, vasodilators like nitroglycerin, nitroprusside, nitric oxide, phosphodiesterase inhibitors also, and beta adrenergic agonists. So all of which causes vasodilatation will inhibit hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction as well as your inhalational anesthesia. Now, factors that decrease the blood flow to the ventilated lung can also be equally detrimental. Now, for example, if it's in one lung ventilation, one lung is collapsed and the other lung is getting ventilated. So, whenever the particular lung which is collapsed, so as a response to the hypoxia, the pulmonary vessels constrict it in that lung, thereby reducing the VQ mismatch. So the ventilated lung is receiving good amount of blood supply as compared to the one which is not getting ventilated. But if there are certain factors that come into play which actually tend to decrease the blood supply to the ventilated lung also, that will definitely increase the dead space and that will defeat the purpose of hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction. So what are these factors? Like high mean airway pressures in the ventilated lung. So whenever the intrathoracic pressures are high, there is hypotension, there is decrease in the blood supply. So whenever there is high mean airway pressures or high PEEP, or whenever you are causing hyperventilation, high peak inspiratory pressures, a low FiO2, which causes hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction in the ventilated lung, vasoconstrictors that have a greater effect on normoxic vessels as compared to the hypoxic ones, and if there is a development of the intrinsic PEEP. So anything that inhibits the hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction, that means that it is causing vasodilation of the arteries where the alveolar hypoxia is happening, or anything that is causing vasoconstriction of the regions where alveolar oxygenation is well maintained. Both of these factors are detrimental. So now coming to the next part of the question, that is what is the effect of anesthesia on hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction? So talking about the volatile anesthetic agents, all of them inhibit hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction in a dose-dependent manner. Most importantly, halothane has the greatest effect, and there is no significant difference between sevoflurane, isoflurane, or desflurane in terms of the effect on hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction. Nitrous oxide increases pulmonary vascular resistance, therefore must be used cautiously in patients with pulmonary hypertension. We just discussed that whenever there is one lung ventilation, as the lung collapses, the PVR increases because of the low lung volume, and this leads to alveolar hypoxia that activates HPV. This redirects the pulmonary blood flow away from the non-ventilated lung, thereby improving the VQ matching. Propofol does not inhibit the hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction, and vasopressors such as alpha-1 agonists can enhance the response. You can also include the points that we've mentioned in the previous slide about the vasodilators and the other drugs, that is beta-adrenergic agonists and calcium phosphodiesterase inhibitors. So you can include those points as well. So to every question, there's a reference given. If at all you want to know about that topic in detail, you can always refer to these articles. These articles are very good. So coming to the second part of the first question, that is interventions that can help prevent atelectasis during anesthesia. Now you know that the functional residual capacity decreases in supine position. Even if the patient is awake, the FRC is going to decrease in supine position. Moreover, if you administer general anesthesia to that patient in supine patient, the FRC will further decrease. And every patient of general anesthesia is prone to atelectasis. Atelectasis happens, but you have to first identify which patients are at risk. So these interventions not only are limited to the operating room, but they also include the pre-operative optimization of the patients, the intraoperative measures which are taken to prevent and treat atelectasis, and also the post-operative mechanisms. So coming to the pre-operative factors, first you identify the patients who are very prone for atelectasis. That means the patients with pre-existing lung problems. That is, they have COPD, asthma, bronchiectasis, or the patient is a chronic smoker, patient is obese, there's an advanced age which is associated with decreased FRC, and if the patient has OSA. So once you have identified that this patient is very prone for hypoxia, atelectasis, CO2 retention, so in that case, once you identify, you have to introduce incentive spirometry right from the time before the operation. Not just after the operation, you have to visit the patient pre-operatively. You have to teach the patient how to perform incentive spirometry, and you have to encourage the patient to keep doing it on a regular basis in the pre-operative period. So also chest physiotherapy if the patient has a lot of secretions, bronchodilators, if the patient is a smoker, cessation of smoking, and antibiotics if at all it's an infected sputum, at least 5 to 7 days before an elective surgery. So whenever it's an elective surgery, you have a lot of time to identify the patients at risk, and you have also a time to optimize these patients. Moreover, as far as the investigations are concerned, you perform baseline X-rays, you perform blood gases, lung function test, so as to identify the disease severity in these patients also. So these are the pre-operative measures. Now, what will you do intraoperatively?